We are at the Muslim Public Affairs Council's 24th Annual Media Awards, honoring voices of courage and conscience. This year, MPAC honors 3 works from the film world. The HBO documentary, The Newburgh Sting, about the FBI's entrapment of 4 African-American Muslims and a terrorist plot. Camp X-Ray, a film about an unlikely friendship between a guard and a detainee at Guantanamo Bay. And Selma, the film about Martin Luther King's march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. Are you as excited as I am that you are emceeing tonight?
Yes, I am excited. It's a true honor. I've been hearing about these awards since '91.
You have not. Have you really?
Well, this is my first time being at the awards, so my first time hosting and attending. So it's I'm very honored. It's just very important, because us as Muslims, we're not monolithic. There are different stories. People of color have various stories. And those type of films really bridge a gap between an understanding and tolerance, bias against certain groups, and just understanding who we are as a people. So, it's a great event, and I hope, we can have these for forever, and the diversity and characters, thrive.
Walid Zaitar, last year you were an honoree for Omar. This year you're presenting Camp X-Ray. How's it feel? I mean, it must be a little bit different, but how did it feel when MPAC asked you to come back and present? I know you were actually overseas when that happened.
It was an honor because last year was just such a great experience. It was my first time, and it's hard to believe that it's been a year. Just like super excited to be here and love the family of MPAC, and I'm a big fan of the project Camp X-Ray. So I haven't seen it, but I read the script, and I cannot wait to see the movie. So it's an honor to present the award.
How does it feel for you to be performing for an American Muslim audience and at an event that really honors voices that bridge those gaps that you were talking about?
Well, I'm honored, I'm thrilled, and very comfortable. I'm not usually this comfortable even in interviews, but because I'm with my brothers and sisters, and I want to have a more active part in the community, and if I can lend my talents to a good cause, a good message, I think MPAC is a wonderful thing, so I would love to lend my talents anytime, anywhere.
Writer and producer Roger Wilson, you introduced the award for Selma. What was it like today, being on stage and presenting an award, and especially for a film like Selma?
Well, it was important to me. I come from a family of civil rights activists. I myself used to work in the Senate, and I practiced civil rights law. So Selma was something that I knew a great deal about long before the movie. And I thought of it as one of the great moments in American history, one of the most challenging and disturbing in some ways, but one of the most triumphant. The movie did a beautiful job of portraying that, and really a marvelous job of showing the passion that it took, the bravery that it took, and the commitment. So the chance to be here at MPAC, which is an organization I care about so deeply, giving an award to a movie of such principle and purpose, this was one of the great nights of my life. It was really beautiful.
Ava DuVernay's blockbuster film Selma almost needs no introduction. The film brilliantly captures a critical moment in the struggle for justice and equality and the civil rights movement. Stefan, first of all, I want to congratulate you on being honored by MPAC at the MPAC Media Awards, Voices of Courage and Conscience.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure this was a really exciting project. So I want to hear from you about how you got this role. I mean, and it's not just any role. I mean, playing someone as well known as John Lewis, who's also still alive, is sometimes kind of challenging.
I live in Toronto, so I I got the script sent over to me by my agents, and I read the script, and as you can imagine, I was, blown away by the material that was in the script and blown away by the role of John Lewis, and having the opportunity to play him, absolutely intrigued me. So I put the audition on tape, and I get a call like 20 minutes later saying that the director wants to Skype with you, Ava DuVernay. And so obviously I was thrilled, and she told me that she would love for me to be a part of the film. So that's where it all started.
I've heard that you've actually met John Lewis.
Yes, I have.
This was prior to this, or during, or when?
Yeah, during actually is the first time I met John. It's so funny.
John, you guys are on a first name basis now, huh?
Yeah, I call him Jay.
Oh, okay.
But no, obviously, I'd done a whole bunch of research about him before actually starting the filming process. And one day we were just on set, and we finished the scene, and Ava calls cut, and in comes John Lewis out of nowhere, and I was like, I don't know, I felt like I saw a ghost or something. It was incredible to see him.
Yeah.
Knowing how much of a hero he is to so many people.
Not only is this a great opportunity for any actor, but to be a part of a movie that about such an important topic and about such an important time period, and it made such a difference in the history of this country. Is that something you think about? Did that weigh on you at all in playing this role and being a part of this project?
Oh, absolutely. Selma for me, was not only an acting experience, but an educational experience. I was able to learn so much and take so much away from it, and to be able to learn so many things that I hadn't known about Martin Luther King, that I hadn't known about the civil rights movement. So much of MLK you hear is "I have a dream," and funnily enough, we don't even say that once in the film. So there was a lot I got to learn about the movement and MLK, which obviously intrigued me to want to be a part of it and want to tell that story.
Do you think that living in Canada or being a Canadian gives you a slightly different perspective than had you grown up here or maybe grown up in the South or something?
You know what, the thing for me is I don't feel like Selma's an American movie or a movie that only connects with Americans. I feel like everybody from all over the world, from all different walks of life, anybody who's faced any sort of adversity can relate to a struggle,
Right.
a struggle in being discriminated against because of something you probably can't control. So, to me that story connects with everybody and connected with me in a lot of ways as well.
You heard that MPAC is honoring the film. Did you have any thoughts about, wow, there's a Muslim organization that is honoring this film, even though it has nothing to do with Islam?
I mean, they were obviously gracious enough to reach out and say that they wanted to present Selma with an award just because of the effect it's obviously having on people and having on the world, and the message it sends. And it's not surprising to me that a Muslim organization would reach out and say this touched us in a certain way, we can relate to this story in a certain way. So this is not shocking or surprising to us at all, and obviously we were incredibly honored to be here and to accept that award.
What other interesting experiences have you had through working on this film from different groups, from different people? I mean, is there anything that stands out with you beyond just, acting in a film?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the biggest thing is just how it's resonating with audiences for me. I have like 12 and 13-year-old kids coming up to me and saying that that they were able to learn something from the film and take something away from it. We have these young kids who are learning about this, who are soon going to be the leaders of our world. So
Absolutely.
that's amazing. That to me is the most touching and fulfilling thing as an actor.
And I think it's very different to read about something in a history book,
Yep.
in history class, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm in American history.
Exactly.
And to
then
go to the
see it.
movies and see it, and see it with such amazing actors
Right.
portraying these people and bringing them to life for you. Where do you go from here? What are your thoughts? I mean, after being in such a film like this, what does a young actor at 22, where does he think,
I know,
where do I go
from here? I made a movie with Oprah. I don't know.
I know, right?
But no, it's obviously, to me, I just see this as the beginning, the beginning of so many other great opportunities and great things to come. I've just been so lucky in this short career to do what I've been able to do and be a part of what I've been able to be a part of. So I'm just going to, keep trying to go after those roles, those challenging roles, those, stories that, affect positive change and can evoke emotion in people and inspire people.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again. I'm looking forward to seeing you up there on the stage
I
receiving
appreciate
the
it.
honor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The documentary film The Newburgh Sting by husband and wife directing team David Hellbrenner and Kate Davis relies primarily on FBI footage to follow the Bureau's fabrication of a terrorist plot involving 4 African-American men in Newburgh, New York. Kate Davis and David Heilbrenner, the filmmakers of The Newburgh Sting, which is being honored tonight by MPAC at the Media Awards. First of all, I want to congratulate you both. I know, David, that you sought out this story and you heard about it and you decided to make this film. So tell me about how that whole process happened.
Well, I used to be a prosecutor a long time ago, and an old law professor of mine said you've got to look at what's going on with the FBI spreading Islamophobia around the United States. And what made Newburgh amazing is that all of it was recorded by the FBI on tape, and so we could really depict in the film, what actually happened.
But I would think that they would be slightly reluctant to have, the public see this material. I mean, it is somewhat not it doesn't quite fit the image that they have portrayed this case as.
No, the last thing the FBI wants is for the public to see this, because it runs directly contrary to the story they've been selling to the public ever since the day they arrested these four terribly, pathetic guys. The FBI told the public, we've busted a Muslim terrorist ring that tried to bomb synagogues and shoot down military aircraft with Stinger missiles.
Yeah.
And the reality is, these were four people they bribed into committing a crime of the FBI's own creation. There was no ring. They weren't Muslim. They were not terrorists. The last thing the FBI wants is for you to see these tapes.
We were digging around, as David said, for a story, and this one seemed like the most outrageous clearest case of entrapment that we knew. And it also was a highly celebrated case because it's Riverdale and the Bronx. It's pitting Jews against Muslims. And I also didn't realize until we got deep into the film that this kind of thing, this targeting of Muslims in particular, happens all the time. This was just one story of many that is served up to the public as, our law enforcement doing the best job it can to keep us safe, while in fact they're lying to us.
When you guys were done, what was the thought after that? Like, wow, now we've made this thing. What do we do now to get the maximum impact for people to actually be aware of what's going on?
Impact is exactly the word. We went out of our way we spent 6 months, fundraising in order to mobilize all the civil rights groups in the United States to press Congress to do something about this. We had the ACLU, the Human Rights Watch, even the Cato Institute, who's even though libertarians though they are, they hate over a zealous government. And I have to say, it actually worked. In October, I testified before the U.S. Senate at a closed briefing, showed clips of the film to a sold-out house, and got a tremendously positive response. Now, I will never get the satisfaction of hearing the FBI say, "I'm sorry, we'll never do this again." But I hear sort of through the grapevine that I think we actually hit them, hard, and they are dialing back this kind of outrageous conduct.
These are real human lives, and that's
Yeah.
one thing we wanted to do with this film, is to humanize everybody involved. The sort of fallout of this practice is enormous. It has real ripple effects that reverberate throughout the country. It's not just for individuals, poor African Americans who lost their lives, but also their families, have really lost their loved ones, and so we work with that. And also, the Muslim community is damaged. The Meshche in Newburgh is now sort of thought of, thanks to the media.
Well, I'm sure
as,
they're stigmatized,
Right, it's really hard on them, and for them to come out and be a part of this film was brave. They did it not because they wanted to again flag the point that they were targeted by the government, but because they thought the truth just has to be known.
So you were talking about mobilizing nonprofit organizations and so on, and civil liberties organizations and so on. So, what kind of effect has that had? And then ultimately being honored by MPAC, I'm sure it's a kind of a rewarding feeling to at least have some acknowledgement of the fact that you are doing this amazing work. And not even for your own personal community. And as a matter of fact, we were just talking about, it possibly having negative repercussions on you guys.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's has a galvanizing effect within the Muslim community, that it's safe to speak up. It's important to speak up. We're at a time in history with Ferguson, with Baltimore, with Eric Garner, where law enforcement is looking worse and worse and worse in the eyes of the public. Our film is, in a sense, part of that trend of pulling back the veneer of dignity that they have and showing there's really a lot of dirty tricks that go on. And it's okay to complain, and it's okay to speak up and speak truth to power and be counted. We interviewed a former assistant director of the FBI who's a
I did
true
see
believer.
him in the film, yes.
And what he said was, I found deeply chilling, because he said it as if this was obvious. He said, we can't go to Congress and say we're winning the war on terror and everything's going well. They'll cut our budget in half. So we have to keep fear alive. And,
Wow.
But to say that with a straight face to a documentary filmmaker who knows perfectly well what our film was about is scary, that is the known agenda and acknowledged by a former assistant director. So I used to think of this as the stuff of like conspiracy theory and the internet and far left. But
Right.
The shocking thing in making the film is that it is incredibly mainstream.
Well, once again, I am so glad that you guys did make this film, and I think it's important, and I really hope more people are able to see it. I congratulate you on making the film and being brave enough to do that. I congratulate you on being honored by MPAC and, being voices of courage and conscience. Camp X-Ray is the directorial and writing debut of Pete Seller. The film stars Kristen Stewart as a guard at Guantanamo Bay who begins to get to know one of the detainees, played by Payman Moadi. Through getting to know him and through their interactions, she begins to realize that the world is not quite as black and white as she previously saw it. Pete Seller, the director and writer of Camp X-Ray. First of all, congratulations on being honored by MPAC. The first thing I want to ask you is, where in the world did this story come to you? What in the world made you decide to sit down and write this particular story?
I've always been kind of thinking a lot about the 9/11 and the World Trade Center attacks and how that was this kind of big moment in at least my life and I think everyone's lives. And I feel like it never really got addressed in any way. And so then after that, there became this weird gulf and this kind of divide between the East and West that was all kind of wrapped up in that. And it's just, I was always wanted to kind of scrape up and dig into that feeling and why that thing was there. On top of that, Guantanamo Bay is something I've always been strangely fascinated with because it seems unreal. The fact that it would exist in the modern day and age, and the fact that it's still open to this day, it always struck me as the most Kafkaesque, unreal kind of thing. So I was really drawn to explore and illuminate a place that I was curious about.
Mm-hmm. Once you decided to embark on this kind of story, what challenges did you face? I'm sure you faced many in trying to actually tell a real story and keep it with a measure of authenticity.
I think the biggest challenge in making a movie about Guantanamo Bay, at least in the way I wanted to do it, was to try and make something that's apolitical. There is so much that's out there and so much that's been said about Guantanamo Bay, but almost all of it has an agenda and almost all of it very easily veers into the realm of propaganda.
Absolutely.
And there's two sides to it, which is like, these detainees should all be freed, and then the other side is saying these people are evil monsters, and the army is right. But I wasn't really interested in any of that. I wanted to make a deeply human film and try and find a way to cut through all of that noise and tell a story about something deeper, not about politics, but about people instead.
I mean, you brought up a point, which is the fact that the topic of Guantanamo in general is very polarizing, and you and I were chatting about the film as a result has been very polarizing. People react to it very differently. So I want to talk a little bit about the reactions you've had to the film and whether that was a concern of yours going into it, and what's happened since then.
It was never a concern of mine. I mean, going into it, I knew that it was kind of a hot button issue. I mean, that's part of the reason I was attracted to it. I feel like if I'm going to make a film and spend all of this creative effort and energy and put my soul into this thing, I want it to be about something that matters, about something that has value, something that is important. And so I wanted to take on a subject that people were kind of scared of talking about. In terms of the reaction, it's been very interesting because it's like a mirror, it reflects what people bring to the movie, you know what I mean? And so there has been some reaction with people that are very offended that we would dare to try and show a detainee as a human. And then there are other people on the other side who say that maybe the film didn't go far enough to convey, the plight of these detainees. So it's been interesting. The reactions really run all over the map, although the ones that I'm most satisfied with are people who really understand, I think, the intention of the film, which is to not pick a side, but to really just focus, as I said, on two people stuck in this situation that they can't get out of.
As far as all the cultural and the religious nuances and so on, I mean, we were talking a little bit before about your concern about getting everything right. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and I know that MPAC played a role to a certain extent in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. MPAC was actually very, very useful. It was interesting, because going into this was a very small film, and I am just a white guy from the middle of America, and so my frame of knowledge is very limited, and I knew that, and I knew that we needed some help to portray both sides of this thing correctly, because that was the whole point of the film, is to not add any more lies or any more spin to what it is, and try and just present things in a very stark and realistic way. And so Suhad and MPAC were very helpful in reading the script and engaging. It was great because it you have the fear that you don't want someone just telling you what to do in the film, but they came from such a wonderful place of cooperation and engagement and conversation, which is what the whole point of the movie is about anyway, is to get two sides that maybe aren't from the same place to talk about these things and have that conversation. So it was very helpful in shaping the characters, a little bit of the language, and just a lot of little cultural, and some of this, of course, a lot of the specifics of of the religious practice, the prayer, all of those things. So that was important to me, and MPAC was a huge help with that. Yeah.
Now, I mean, you were telling me that there have been some, negative reactions, even especially from people who haven't seen the film, but just kind of judging it as, how could you humanize a detainee? But you also told me about a really interesting thing, which is that you got approached by a real live guard or a former guard from Guantanamo, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's been interesting. There have been a handful of ex-military people that have approached me at various stages. We had a woman after the screening at Sundance who told me how incredibly, who was a guard, and told me how moved she was by the film and how it captured this strange piece of her life that she kind of wasn't able to verbalize. And then similarly, I had there was a guy that reached out to me who had actually made friends with a guard had made friends with a detainee in Guantanamo Bay, and reached out and said that the film in some strange way really helped to heal him, which honestly was the only review that ever really mattered. When he said that to me, I was like, well, that's the only thing that really mattered. And it sounds cliche to say it, but when you get reactions like that, or other people that are deeply and sincerely touched by the film, it's like, if you can touch one person, that's really all that matters,
I want to congratulate you once again on being honored by MPAC, and congratulate you on the film. I loved it, and wish you luck on all of your upcoming projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much.